Greetings. Let us move on to the next topic in the module 5. Spur gears and gear trains is the chapter name, in which today's topic is Introduction to Gear Trains. The topics to be discussed in these sessions are the simple gear trains, compound gear trains, reverted gear trains, epicyclic gear trains, velocity ratio and train value. Then some example problems on epicyclic gear train. Let us know what is first of all the gear trains. Actually, the gear trains is a combination of gears. The gear trains is composed of two or more gears in mesh for the purpose of transmitting motion. It's also called as transmitting power also from one shaft to another shaft. Especially the gear trains are commonly used to transmit the speed with a large reduction within the constrained space. Hence, so whenever a large speed reduction is required within a small space, we prefer the gear trains. Before moving on to the classification of gear trains, I would like to refresh the basic definition of velocity ratio and train value. We know the velocity ratio is the ratio of angular velocity of the driver gear to the angular velocity of driven gear. The velocity ratio is also called as speed ratio. Whereas we have another concept that is train value. The train value is the ratio of angular velocity of driven gear to the angular velocity of driver gear. So if we observe these two relations, we can predict that the velocity ratio is inversely proportional to the train value. Let us consider the direction of rotation. We often consider the clockwise as positive and anti-clockwise or counterclockwise as negative. And at the same time, if we consider two types of mesh, that is external mesh and internal mesh. So when the gears mesh externally, they rotate in opposite direction. Now if you consider this figure number 1, if we consider the left pinion, the smaller gear as a driver, if it is rotating in clockwise direction, the meshed with another gear that rotates in counterclockwise direction because these two gears are meshed together externally. Hence, when gear mesh externally, they rotate in opposite direction. Similarly, let us consider the figure number 2. Here we have one internal gear. The bigger circle represents the internal gear, whereas the smaller circle which we have in connection with the internal gear, that is external gear. So internal gear in which the gears are internally cut and external gears will have gears on the circumference. So these two are internally engaged or internally meshed. So hence, so whenever the one gear rotates in clockwise direction, the internal gear also rotates in clockwise direction. That means when internal gears mesh together, they rotate in same direction. Let's move on to the classification of gear trains. We commonly call simple gear trains, compound gear trains, reverted gear trains, and epicyclic gear trains. This is the classification of gear trains. We will discuss one by one in upcoming slides. What is simple gear train? As the name itself indicates, simple means here the each shaft supports only one gear. Will not be having any more number of gears. Each shaft will support one gear in case of simple gear trains. A series of gears capable of receiving and transmitting motion from one gear to another gear is called as simple gear trains. In this, all gears axis remain fixed relative to the frame, and each gear is on a separate shaft. So that is the definition or brief introduction about the simple gear. Whereas in this figure you can see each shaft consists of only one gear. There are totally 5 gears, so all 5 gears are mounted on 5 different shafts. Two external pair of gears always moves the opposite direction that we already learned in previous slide. And if you observe this gear train, observe the odd numbers gears 1, 3 and 5. If you consider the gear number 1 as a driver gear, the driver gear is rotating in counterclockwise. That causes the gear number 2 rotating clockwise. In turn, the gear number 2 is in mesh with gear number 3, so gear number 3 rotates in counterclockwise. Gear number 4 is in contact with the gear number 3, so these two are externally meshed, so gear 4 rotates in clockwise direction, and finally the driven gear 5 will rotate in counterclockwise direction. So if you refer to the diagram, we can clearly say all the odd numbered gears rotates in one direction. See 1, 3, 5, gear number 1, 3, 5 are rotating in counterclockwise direction. Whereas the gear number 2 and 4 is rotating in clockwise direction. Hence we can say all even number gears rotating in one opposite direction to that of the odd number gear in which the gear rotates. The velocity ratio or speed ratio of a driving to driven gear is negative when the input and output gears rotating opposite direction, and the velocity ratio of that is a speed of driving to driven gear is considered positive when input and output gears rotate in same direction. All the gears can be in straight line or it can be in zigzag manner. Simple gear trains, it doesn't mean that we have only spur gear. The simple gear train can also have dual gears also. Let us go for a simple introduction. What happens if you introduce a number of gears in between driving and driven gears? Let us consider the T, capital T as a number of teeth on the gear. Sometimes Z also be called as number of teeth on gear, and N is equal to number of speed of the gear in RPM. We consider the ratio of angular speed omega 2 by omega 1. We know that the angular velocity can be written as 2 pi n, therefore the corresponding omega 2 by omega n can be written as 2 pi n2 divided by 2 pi n1. Here 2 pi is a constant, so 2 pi get cancels, we end up with n2 by n1. The ratio of speed can be represented in terms of ratio of number of teeth in this manner. That is n2 by n1 is equal to t1 by t2. Similarly, this is for considering gear 1 and 2. This is considering gear 1 and 2. So if we consider gear 2 and 3, we get the relationship n3 by n2 is equal to t2 by t3. Similarly, if we consider gear 3 and 4, we get n4 by n3 is equal to t3 by t4. And finally, if you consider gear number 4 and gear number 5, the ratio of speeds n5 by n4 can be written as the number of teeth on 4th gear divided by number of teeth on 5th gear. Now let us multiply the ratios of speeds which is on left hand side. Considering n2 by n1 multiplied by n3 by n2 multiplied by n4 by n3 multiplied by n5 by n4, and that should be equal to the product of right hand side, that is the product of teeth ratios, t1 by t2 multiplied by t2 by t3 multiplied by t3 by t4 and T4 by T5. Upon this, we can see N2, N2 get cancels, which is in numerator and denominator. N3, N3 get cancels. N4, N4 get cancels. And similarly, the number of teeth also constant. So T2, T2 get cancels. T3, T3 get cancels. T4 and T4, I can cancel it. Hence, on the left hand side, we got N5 by N1, and right hand side, we got T1 by T5. That means the N5 is a driven gear and N1 is a driving gear. If you consider the ratio of driven gear to driving gear, we call it as train value. So the train value N5 by N1 will be equal to the ratio of number of teeth on driving gear to the number of teeth on driven gear. And we know the velocity ratio or speed ratio is the reciprocal of the train value. Hence, the ratio N1 by N5 will become equal to T5 by T1. By observing this equation, we understood that to calculate the speed ratio, the intermediate gears have no effect on the speed ratio. If you know only the speed of the driving gear and if you know the speed of the driven gear, that's enough to calculate the speed ratio. Or else if you know the number of teeth on the driven gear and if you know the number of teeth on the driving gear, that's enough to find out the velocity ratio. Hence, the conclusion is, thus it is seen that the intermediate gears have no effect on speed ratio and are also known as idler gears. Let us move on to the second type of gear train, that is compound gear train. In compound gear train, each shaft supports at least two gears wheels except the first and last generally. When a series of gears are connected in such a way that two or more gears rotate about an axis with the same angular velocity, we call it as compound gear trains. In this compound gear train, some of the intermediate shaft, that is uh, other than the input and output shaft, may carry more than one gear also. Let us consider this figure which shows the compound gear train. Here we can see the first gear and sixth gear carries only single gear. The intermediate shaft consists of at least two gears, that is 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So this is called as compound gear train. Now if we consider the ratio of the speeds and ratios of the number of teeth, and if we multiply together, we get this relation. The driven, we know the train value is driven gear speed to the driver gear speed. So N2 by N1 multiplied by N4 is the driven gear by N3. So N4 by N3 I can consider because the gear 1 is in mesh with gear 2, here we can see, and gear 3 is in mesh with gear 4, and gear 5 is in mesh with gear 6. But we often refer, since gear 2 and gear 3 are mounted on same shaft, the speed of N2 and N3 will be same. So instead of taking N4 by N3, I can write N4 by N2 itself. In similar way, instead of writing N6 by N5, the ratio of N6 by N5, the gear number 5 and gear number 4 are on the same shaft, so I can write N6 by N4 also. So hence we have considered N6 by N4. And if you consider the number of teeth ratios, T1 by T2 multiplied by T3 by T4 multiplied by T5 by T6. Hence, the train value will become the product of number of teeth on driving gear to the product of number of teeth on driven gear. The epicyclic gear train, in the figure you can see the diagram of a epicyclic gear train. In all the above previous types of gears, the axis of rotation of wheels are fixed, but in the position, and the gear rotate about their respective axes, the previous types of gears. Whereas, but in an epicyclic gear train, the axis of the sum of the gears rotate around the axis of other wheels, which they mesh. So a gear train having a relative motion as with respect to the axis is called as planetary or epicyclic gear train. So in this type, the axis of at least one of the gears also moves related to the frame. In this diagram, you can explain the planetary gear train. Here we have a arm and two gears. So one gear we can call it as a sun gear, which is fixed and it will rotate about their own axis, and another small gear is considered as a planet gear. So this planet gear rotates about its own axis. At the same time, it rotates about the sun gear also with respect to the sun gear. So the sun gear C is fixed to the frame. The planet gear B, carried by a revolving arm A, rotates not only about their own center, but also about the center of the fixed gear. So this is epicyclic gear train. So the basic theory of the epicyclic gear train is shown in diagram. So if you consider the gear B meshes with the gear C, so revolves around it when the arm is rotated. So if you consider this arm, if this vertical arm is rotated in this direction, or the B is called as planet gear and C is called as sun gear. So if you consider the arm position in this diagram, you can clearly say the arm position. So the point P, what we have, is keeps changing their position by 90 degree. If the arm rotates in clockwise direction, in this direction, so the position of point P is what the gear B rotates about the point P. So gear B is revolves once on its own axis. At the same time, it revolves about the axis of the sun gear. So the B spins about its own center, and the number of revolution it makes is in the ratio the TC by TB. That is number of teeth on gear C divided by number of teeth on gear B. So this will be helpful to find out the speed of the planet gear as well. So if you consider that gear C is unable to rotate and arm A is revolved once, the gear B will revolve one additional rotation plus the ratio of teeth on gear C divided by ratio of teeth on gear B because of the orbit. So it is this extra rotation that causes confusion often, but one way to get around this is to imagine that whole system is revolved once. Whole system is revolved once. So then we can identify the gear that is fixed and revolve it back one revolution. So work out the revolutions of the other gears and add them up. We can get it by following the tabular column method. So this is the tabular column method we often follow. In the step 1, we assume revolve all gears once about their centers. We have arm A, we have planetary gear B, we have sun gear C. So we assume everything will rotate once. So revolve all once. That is the first step. So 1, 1, 1 we can say. Then we identify that C should be fixed. Okay, and rotate it backwards. One revolution, keeping the arm fixed. So if we keep the arm fixed, the arm cannot rotate, so arms will become 0. So arm will be 0 and C will take it as -1. Then B will be at the ratio TC by TB. So if we add everything, 1 plus 0 is equal to 1 and B is equal to 1 plus TC by TB and 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. So if you take an example problem, here we have, we consider the sun gear with 100 number of teeth and planet gear with 50 number of teeth, and arm is revolved once. How many times does the planet gear revolves? We can use the tabular column method here. So action and the number of gears and arm are written about column and axis. We revolve all once. So now if we fix the arm, A will become 0. Then if we rotate the sun gear in reverse direction, C is equal to -1. Then the number of teeth ratio, that is 100 by 50, will become for the planet wheel. Hence, by adding everything, we can observe for one rotation of arm, the planet gear is rotating 3 times. So gear B makes 3 revolutions for one rotation of the arm. So the design so far consider has no identifiable input and output. So we need to design that puts an input and output shaft on the same axis. So this can be done in several ways. So this is just an example problem. So in upcoming classes, we discuss the number of problems on gear trains. So this is about introduction about gear trains. Thank you.